The night everything changed. Story 1. Maddie clutched my sleeve under the dinner table, her small fingers trembling. I could feel her breathing grow shallow, too afraid to make a sound. Across from us, my father leaned back in his chair, wiped his mouth with a napkin and said it. "We're not watching your kids anymore." The words hit like a punch to the gut. For a second I thought I had misheard him. The room had gone silent, so silent I could hear the faint hum of the fridge in the kitchen. My son Ryan, barely 7 years old, looked up at me with wide, confused eyes. My mother wouldn't meet my gaze. My sister Julia just sipped her wine, a smirk tugging at the corner of her lips. My stomach churned. I had spent 2 months, renovating their house from the ground up. Every spare moment, every drop of sweat, every aching muscle had gone into making this place perfect for them. For free. And now, sitting in the middle of the home I had built with my own hands, they were telling me my kids, my babies, were too much for them. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. What? My father sighed as if he were tired of explaining something so obvious. Your kids are a handful, Ethan. Julia's kids are quiet, well-behaved. They don't make a mess. Maddie's grip on my sleeve tightened. Something inside me cracked. I turned to Julia. She was dabbing the corner of her mouth with a napkin, pretending not to notice me staring. She knew. She had always known she was the favorite. And she liked it. I forced myself to breathe. So let me get this straight. I spent 2 months fixing up your house, doing everything you asked. And now, because my kids actually act like kids, they're a problem. My father gave a small shrug. We're just saying we can't do it anymore. We're too old for this. I let out a short, humorless laugh. Too old for this? But not too old to let me rebuild your damn house. The tension in the room turned suffocating. Ethan, my mother cut in, her voice soft, her expression carefully neutral. Let's not ruin Thanksgiving, okay? You're taking this too personally. Maddie let go of my sleeve. I looked down at her and saw it, the hurt, the confusion, the tiny crack forming in her little heart. Ryan pushed his plate away. Are we bad, Dad? I swear I saw my father flinch. My mother shifted uncomfortably. But my sister? She just smiled. I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. Come on, kids. We're leaving. Ethan, my mother gasped. Don't be ridiculous. I didn't even look at her. Go get your coats, I told Maddie and Ryan. Maddie hesitated, looking at her grandmother for some kind of reassurance. She found none. Ryan slid out of his chair and took his sister's hand. Together they walked toward the front door. As I turned to follow them, my father's voice rang out, low, sharp, full of warning. You're really going to walk out over this? I turned back, my pulse thundering in my ears. You don't have to babysit anymore. I kept my voice steady, but my body was shaking. And I don't have to fix your house. For the first time, real fear flashed across my father's face. But it was too late. I walked out, shutting the door behind me, leaving behind a family that no longer felt like mine. As I buckled Maddie into her seat, she whispered, Daddy? I swallowed hard. Yes, sweetheart. Her lip trembled. Why don't they like us? I clenched my jaw, forcing the rage down. They love you, I said softly. They just don't know how to show it. A lie. But the only one I could bear to tell. As I drove away, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. My mother's name flashed on the screen. I ignored it, because I already knew. This wasn't over. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. I groggily reached for it, my heart jolting when I saw the number of missed calls, 52. For a moment, panic surged through me. Had something happened? Was there an emergency? My parents were getting older. Maybe my mother had fallen or my father had a health scare. I immediately called back. The line barely rang before she answered. Ethan. My mother's voice exploded through the speaker, sharp and frantic. I sat up, rubbing my eyes. What's going on? Is everything okay? You need to come over. Right now. Something in her voice made my stomach clench. Not fear. Not sadness. Rage. My father's voice came next, calmer but clipped. Just come, Ethan. We need to talk. And suddenly, I knew. This wasn't about an emergency. It was about control. They weren't calling because they had realized they hurt my kids. They weren't calling because they regretted comparing them to Julia's. They were calling because I had walked away. Because I had taken away what they wanted from me. My free labor. I exhaled slowly. I'll be there in an hour. When I arrived, the tension hit me the second I stepped inside. My mother was pacing the living room, arms crossed, lips pressed so tightly together they were nearly white. My father stood in the kitchen, arms folded, his jaw tight. And Julia? She was lounging on the couch like she was watching a reality TV fight unfold. I closed the door behind me. What's so urgent? My mother whirled around. Don't you think you overreacted? I raised an eyebrow. Overreacted. My father exhaled, slow and measured. Ethan, we're sorry if we hurt your feelings, but you can't just refuse to finish the house because of this. And there it was. They weren't sorry about what they said. They were sorry they had pissed me off before I finished their renovations. I let out a sharp laugh. So let me get this straight. You call my kids a burden. You compare them to Julia's like they're some kind of defective product. You humiliate me in front of the entire family. And now, because I won't keep doing free work for you, I'm the problem? My mother clutched her chest like I had just slapped her. That's not fair, Ethan. We've done so much for you. My hands clenched into fists. Like what? We took care of your kids for years. A bitter taste filled my mouth. For years? Mom, I asked you to babysit maybe twice a month. And now, the one time I actually need you, you decide my kids are too much work. I shook my head. You don't want to babysit? Fine. But don't sit here and pretend you're some kind of martyr. For the first time, Julia spoke. Mom, Dad, you really shouldn't have compared the kids like that. A flicker of surprise crossed my mother's face. You don't think we were right? Julia shrugged. It's not about being right. You just shouldn't have said it in front of the kids. It wasn't a defense. It was a calculated move, keeping herself neutral while keeping her seat at the throne. My father sighed. Look, Ethan, we just want this to be over. You're not really going to cut us off over something so small, are you? I met his gaze, steady and unflinching. Watch me. My mother let out a dramatic gasp, like I had just threatened to put her in a nursing home. My father's expression darkened. You're being selfish. I stilled. Selfish? After 2 months of free labor? After bending over backward to help them? After never complaining even when they took and took and took? Slowly I turned back. My voice was deadly calm. Selfish? You want me to spend hours fixing your house for free, but you won't even spend a few hours with your own grandkids? You want my time, my effort, my energy, but the second I need something, suddenly it's too much for you? My mother's lips trembled. That's not. I cut her off. You don't have to babysit anymore. But I don't have to fix your house either. And then I turned and walked out. That night, I tucked Maddie and Ryan into bed, their little bodies curled up tight under the blankets. Before I turned off the light, Ryan whispered, Are we ever going back to Grandma and Grandpa's house? I hesitated. Then I said the only thing I could. No, buddy. Not for a while. And as I sat in the dark, staring at the ceiling, I knew. This wasn't over. Not even close. The first few days were quiet. Too quiet. Maddie and Ryan didn't ask about their grandparents again, and that silence cut deeper than any argument ever could. They had already learned something I had spent years pretending wasn't true. Some love only lasts as long as you're useful. Then the call started. At first, it was just my mother. A dozen times a day, her name flashing across my screen. I let every call go to voicemail, but she wasn't one to give up easily. Then came the text. Ethan, enough of this. Your father isn't sleeping. He's so upset. Do you even care what you're doing to us? I stared at the screen, feeling nothing but exhaustion. What I was doing to them. Not a single message about Maddie or Ryan. No regret for the things they had said. Just more guilt, more manipulation, more proof that to them this wasn't about family. It was about control. And they weren't done. Next came the relatives. First my aunt called. Ethan, your parents are heartbroken. Just apologize and move on. Then an uncle. You're really cutting off your entire family over a little disagreement? Then Julia. Julia, who sat there smiling while my children were insulted. Look, you've made your point. But don't you think you're dragging this out? I almost laughed. My point? Was that what they thought this was? A lesson? A tantrum? They didn't understand. This wasn't about the house. It was about the moment my father put down his fork, looked me in the eye, and told me my kids were too much for him. The moment my mother compared them to Julia's like they were second-rate. I wasn't dragging this out. I was done. But then one evening the doorbell rang. When I opened it, my father was standing there. His arms were crossed. His face was blank. But his eyes held the same heavy weight they always did, the expectation that I would listen, that I would fall in line. Enough, he said. I raised an eyebrow. Enough what? This? He waved a hand like I was being ridiculous. You've made your point. Now come back and finish the house. I let out a sharp laugh. That's why you're here? Not to talk about the kids? Not to apologize? You just want me to finish your house. You're making this into something it's not. I took a slow breath, holding back the anger rising in my chest. No, I said quietly. You made it into something else when you looked my children in the eye and told them they weren't good enough for you. Something flickered in his expression. Guilt, maybe, or something close to it. But it disappeared as fast as it came. Family helps each other, he said. And that was what broke me. Because I had believed that. My whole life I had believed that. And every time they had needed something, I was there. Every call, every favor, every repair. I gave and gave and gave, because family helped each other. But the second I needed something, the second my kids needed something, they decided family had limits. I let out a slow exhale. You're right, Dad. Family does help each other. But you don't want family. You want labor. His jaw tightened. If it's about money, I'll pay you for the work you've done. Just come back and finish. And there it was. Not an apology. Not an attempt to fix anything. Just a transaction. I shook my head. No. His expression darkened. Ethan, don't be stupid. I reached for the door. Good night, Dad. Then, just as I was about to close it, his voice turned cold. You're going to regret this. For the first time in my life, his words didn't shake me. I met his gaze, steady and unflinching. No, I said, voice calm. I won't. And then I shut the door. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a little boy waiting for my father's approval. I felt free. And that was something I would never let them take from me again. After weeks of silence, something became clear. I didn't miss them. I missed the idea of family, but not the version they gave me. For the first time, I wasn't carrying the weight of trying to prove my worth. I wasn't waiting for approval that would never come. And you know what? Life felt lighter. Maddie and Ryan laughed more. They felt safe, loved, and free from unfair comparisons. And I realized something important. Family isn't about blood. It's about who truly cares. Not everyone deserves a place in your life just because they share your last name. And sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away, for your own peace. If you've ever felt unappreciated, used, or only valued for what you can give, know this. You are enough. Just as you are. No conditions, no expectations. Have you ever had to put yourself first? Let me know in the comments. And if this story spoke to you, like, share, and subscribe because someone out there needs to hear this too.